For more than a century, one name has pretty much meant just one thing: brilliant deduction. Sherlock Holmes. But who was the man behind the legend, really? You know, his own partner, Dr. John Watson, spent years just trying to figure that out. So today, we're going to follow in Watson's footsteps to deconstruct the mind of the world's most famous consulting detective.
And that's the central question, isn't it? Holmes seemed to operate on a completely different plane of perception. To him, the world was just this massive collection of data, full of clues hidden in plain sight that were totally invisible to everybody else. So how do you even start to unravel a mind like that?
Well, we're going to let Dr. Watson be our guide. He was the original stand-in for us, the audience, the first one who just marveled at what Holmes could do. He lived with the mystery every single day, constantly trying to piece together the puzzle of his enigmatic flatmate. Watson's fascination is our fascination, and his stories are our evidence.
Okay, so our first order of business, the man himself. Before we can even get into his methods, we have to grapple with just how eccentric this individual really was.
This right here captures the central paradox of Holmes. His mind was a perfectly ordered machine, but his living space was absolute chaos. Watson described him as one of the messiest men he'd ever known. I mean, cigars in the coal bin, tobacco in a slipper. He even used his wall for pistol practice. This wasn't just being untidy, it was the mark of a mind that completely ignored convention if it didn't serve his purpose.
And this quote reveals another one of his huge contradictions. Holmes wasn't always a whirlwind of activity. He would flip between these fits of incredible energy, chasing clues for days without any rest, and then these periods of absolute lethargy, where he'd just lie on the sofa for days on end. He was a man of extremes, totally driven by the thrill of the mental chase and completely lost without it.
This really eccentric personality was the engine for the very heart of the legend, his method. You see, Holmes didn't see himself as a detective. He saw himself as a scientist, and his field of study was the science of deduction.
This is so crucial to understanding him. When Watson was shocked to find out Holmes didn't know that the Earth revolved around the sun, Holmes was just like, so what? What does that have to do with me? He believed the mind has finite storage, kind of like an attic, and he consciously refused to learn anything that wasn't directly useful for his work, just to avoid cluttering up the space.
That is the absolute core of his philosophy. There was no magic involved. No lucky guesses. For Holmes, guessing was an intellectual sin. Every single conclusion, no matter how startling it sounded, had to be built on a foundation of observable, verifiable facts. It was a rigorous, repeatable process.
Let's see this in action. When Watson challenges him, Holmes takes his brother's old pocket watch, and from that one object, just unfolds the man's entire life story. He observes the scratches, inferring they came from being kept carelessly with keys and coins. From that, he infers a careless man. Since the watch was expensive, he deduces it was an inheritance, meaning the man once had good prospects. He combines these small facts to paint this larger picture of a man who threw his chances away and fell into poverty. It's a masterclass in how large inferences depend on the smallest effects.
So the crucial point is that his genius wasn't about seeing things others couldn't see. It was about understanding the significance of things that others simply ignored. A trampled path in the mud was, to his trained eyes, a complete story. He called the art of tracing footsteps the most important branch of detective science. Dust on a carpet, the way a man holds a walking stick. These were the raw data of his science.
Now, this scientific approach directly shaped the stories themselves. What's fascinating about a lot of these cases is that the solution to a crime in London is often found decades in the past and thousands of miles away.
Take a study in Scarlet. The police are baffled. A man is found dead in an empty house. No clear cause of death, no motive, no suspect. It's a classic locked room-style puzzle, and it seems like it's totally confined to this one grimy house in London.
Then the story just pivots hard. We're thrown back decades into the past onto the unforgiving deserts of the American West. The narrative shifts to a desperate journey of pioneers, a story of survival, forced marriage, and a vow of vengeance. And it feels completely disconnected. But of course, it isn't. To understand that death on Brixton Road, Holmes has to trace the motive all the way back to its origin point. The crime itself is merely the final act of a drama that began a generation earlier. This structure is pure Conan Doyle, the idea that the deepest motives are forged in a distant, fiery past.
Now, a mind like Holmes's doesn't exist in a vacuum.
His world was populated by people who served as perfect foils, from the bumbling police inspectors to the one person who managed to truly outwit him. And this just highlights the stark contrast in methods. The official police, Inspectors Gregson and Lestrade, were always in a rush. They'd find one little piece of evidence, leap to a conclusion, and arrest the wrong person. Meanwhile, Holmes patiently gathered his data, refusing to even guess until the facts forced an inevitable conclusion. He was playing the long game, while they were focused on easy answers.
This begs the question, though. With a mind so superior, could he ever truly be defeated? Was there anyone who could actually match his intellect?
The answer is yes, but it wasn't a criminal mastermind or rival detective. As Watson tells us in A Scandal in Bohemia, Sherlock Holmes was comprehensively outmaneuvered by an American opera singer named Irene Adler. She anticipated his every move, turned his own tricks against him, and ultimately protected her own interests, leaving Holmes holding nothing but a photograph of her.
And Holmes, the man who was famously logical and unemotional, never saw it as a failure. He saw it as a worthy defeat. He developed this profound, lifelong respect for her intelligence and her spirit. To him, she was not just a woman, she was forever the woman.
His one defeat only served to humanize him, and it cemented a legacy that proved impossible to end, even when his own creator tried to kill him off.
Imagine Watson's shock. Years after watching Holmes plunge to his death at the Reichenbach Falls, locked in combat with Professor Moriarty, he returns to his study to find his old friend just standing there. The joy and disbelief in that moment speak volumes about the void Holmes had left behind.
Now, the in-story explanation was that Holmes had faked his death to go underground and systematically destroy Moriarty's huge criminal empire. But the real reason he came back was public demand. The world simply wasn't ready to let go of Sherlock Holmes. He had become indispensable.
In the end, this is the feeling he leaves us with. Watson's complete faith in his friend's abilities really captures the core of his appeal. No matter how complex the problem, how twisted the circumstances, we believe that Sherlock Holmes can see the one thread that will unravel the whole thing.
Which leaves us with one final thought. Holmes's greatest gift wasn't some supernatural ability, but a finely tuned power of observation. He taught us that the world is full of clues, if only we know how to look. So the real question he leaves for us is, what are we missing?